Yo, Philly, 1950 census, four-part workshop. This is going to concern the first part on resources. So I decided, because I wanted to show researchers for Philadelphia some very specific information, to produce this workshop. This is a long workshop divided into four parts. The 1950 census is going to be released to the public in April of 2022, and I hope with this workshop to shorten your learning curve on the use of locational search tools and prepare you for problems you could face. I will show you how to find information from the 1950 housing census schedules, which was done at the same time, for Philly blocks. And I will discuss census tracts and how they can be used as locational tools. And this last topic was the main one that I used to create this workshop. It's in part 4. Okay, so this is part A. Yo, Philly, odd, put down your hoagie and postpone going down the shore or up the mountains and listen to my news. With apologies from this New Yorker. You were the third largest city in the United States in 1950, after New York City and Chicago. During the first 2 weeks of April 1950, and urban areas, the enumerators got 2 weeks, federal census takers counted every single one of your 2,071,605 residents. They got 7 cents a person. That's what they were paid for. If you're looking for an overview of the 1950 census, how it was done, especially information about the enumerators, and an overview of the major questions and the results, I have a YouTube video on the 1950 U.S. Census for genealogists. In fact, I have right now, not counting this workshop, 10 1950 YouTube videos. Are you aware, Philly, that on April 1st, 2022, you will be able to see answers to the 1950 census questions from those 2 million plus residents at the National Archives website, which will be fully active on April 1st, 2022. Well, Philly, what are you waiting for? Start your 1950 census resource folder today. It's never too early to do this. So you ask, what am I going to put in this folder? Well, first make a list. Who are you going to look for? Were they alive on April 1st, 1950? And I would suggest you actually make a spreadsheet. The name of the people you're looking for, ages, birthplace, siblings, spouse, offspring, and especially addresses. So make a list, put it in your folder. Get a copy of the Enumerators Handbook. There are some transcriptions online about the instructions to these enumerators, but I'm giving you a link to a scan of the actual reference manual. I recommend you get that, put it in your resource folder. Get a high-resolution copy of the population schedule. These are the questions, and this is what we are going to be looking at in April of 2022. And it's a high-resolution copy, so you can zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and see the small print. I want you to get that. This is a blank copy that I'm holding. I used to be able to hand that around in my talks. This picture was taken during the pandemic. I have my pandemic haircut, and it's going to be difficult to pass around material from now on. So it's really too bad. But that is the size of the blank census schedule. Get a high-resolution copy of the housing schedule, which was done at the same time and is actually on the back side of the population schedule. And there are links here. Of course, you could always pause the video and write down the links. And here's what the housing schedule looks like. This is on the back of the population schedule. How's you going to find, Philly, your ancestors, your old heads? Now, I'm an old head, and this is going to be the first census that I'm going to be on. It's going to be really exciting. How are you going to find who lived in your house on this census? How are you going to do that? Pure luck? Your good looks? Ask someone else to do it? Well, hey, there are over 3,000 census districts to look through. I think you're going to have to do this yourself. What about name indexes and locational tools? This is what researchers use, these two strategies. So let's look at these online census name indexes. The 1940 census, there is a free one online. We'll talk about that. These are efficient ways of finding people. You don't have to know census format, what an enumeration district is, the tract number, etc. They usually link directly to the right image page. And there are free indexes for most federal censuses, and subscription sites often have their own indexes. So if you go that route on name searches, I've given you a hint here. You can have two different people. Give them the name of a person on the, say, the 1940 census. One person finds it, the other one doesn't. And the one who finds it understands that you need to relax your assumptions. You can use wildcards, and there's some other hints here as well. It's more art than science sometimes to find people on indexes. But there's a problem with name indexes on April 1st, 2022. So if we look back in 1940 census became public in April of 2012. And you can see from this newspaper that in September 2012, it announced that the 1940 census was fully indexed by volunteers. There were 132 million names, and the index is on the FamilySearch.org website. It was supposed to take them a year, as you can read that, but it took them 4 months because they had 163,000 volunteers. The locational tools I'm going to be talking about that we created from 69 volunteers, plus Steve Morse and myself. What we could have done with 163,000. Incredible. So it's going to take time for a name index to become usable after the census becomes public. That doesn't mean you have to wait. If you have an address, you can do a location search. When there isn't a name index, sometimes name indexes fail. The census taker misheard the name of the person, wrote it down as they heard it. Maybe the person gave a false name. The transcriber couldn't read the handwriting. Maybe there was ink spots around, etc. A lot of things could happen. In addition to that, 4.4% of the people in 1950 are estimated to have been missed on the census. And so you can say, oh, I only use name indexes. Well, wouldn't it be ironic that you wait 5-6 months trying to find somebody on the name index, can't find them, revert to a location search, and then find out that their house was missed, or they refused to submit information. They didn't answer the census taker's postcard asking for an appointment because they weren't home. They did not return a blank census form that was left at the residence. I mean, rumor has it that Albert Einstein came to his very famous quote because he was looking up on the 1940 census with name indexes a person who didn't have a census form. They did not submit it. So here, for instance, this is rumor. Here's Albert Einstein. He said, I'll try one more name variation for this woman called Phoebe Thurnick. And finally, he just decided to actually do probably a location search, and that's when he came up with this famous quote: "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." So if you're strictly a name index person, I suggest you broaden your strategy. And when that census comes up, if you have an address, use it on the locational tools. You can find who lived in your house in 1950. Now, if you're looking at this and you live in the big house in Northeast Philadelphia, well, I can tell you right now who lived there in 1950, because large institutions have their own census district number. So you don't have to thank me when you get out. On the other hand, this hobby attracts a number of people. We were surprised in 1940 the number of people who used our tools who didn't have the name of a person, just had an address. Your free library has an essay on house history and how to gather information. And I think the city of Philadelphia also has information. I'm showing you two links here on doing searching of property, who owned houses, etc. So I want you to do this now on your list. Odd, you need to get 1950 Philly addresses. Ask your older relatives where you at in 1950. Look at their address books. Now, I think a lot of these people here weren't around in 1950, so you need to be careful about address books and who's on them. There are a number of possible sources that you have to find addresses, and I have this slide and the next one as well. Telephone directory is a possibility, and I'm going to show you a telephone directory that's really important for you, Philly. And so here are some more possible sources to find addresses of your target people. So Ancestry.com is a subscription service, has on their website a really, really important resource for you. It is a telephone directory for Philadelphia from May of 1950. May of 1950. It is in their U.S. City Directories collection, even though it's not a city directory. Telephone directories are a little bit different. In 1940, the majority of families did not have a telephone. But in 1950, most families did. So this is going to be really important because it has all these addresses on it. So what happens if you don't have a subscription? Oh, but first, I wanted to show you why it is maybe more important, easier to locate somebody by address than by name. And my example is Philly John Smith. Do you want to locate John Smith by name only? Or would it be easier to locate John Smith in Philadelphia by address? Well, I rest my case. For those of you who do not have a subscription to Ancestry.com, I looked on Philadelphia using an online search and found out that there is a library edition, a subscription that UPenn students, faculty, and staff have access to. I also found that the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, I'm giving you a link to their webpage, has an institutional edition for Ancestry's material. So you might be able to get the May 1950 phone directory access that way. For people who are outside Philadelphia, check your local library to see if they have a subscription to Ancestry.com Library Edition to get hold of that important resource. Now I can feel a certain amount of apprehension, being overwhelmed with the amount of material, etc. So let me reassure you. Let me reassure you that Steve Morse and myself, are there to help you at every step of your journey. On the background is the one-step website, the U.S. Census Section, and if you look there, you'll see there's something called a 1950 tutorial quiz. I recommend that highly. It is how to access the 1950 census in one step, and what we have done there is we're going to ask you a series of questions. As you choose the answer that you want us to hear, we will then give you some choices to accomplish tasks. And the emphasis is on alternative solutions. So, for instance, if you didn't know an address in Philadelphia, we would have shown you that list of sources and also some additional material as well. So that is part one of a four-part workshop on the 1950 census on resources. I hope you go through this in the order that I have set it up. Good luck on your searches for people in the 1950 census.